was the first time I've actually gone into a conversation about that because it's so vulnerable. My goggles are filled with tears. I was like, I'm done. I am done. I do not care. I could not care less.
How close were you to quitting at that point?
Oh, like a nanometer. I think a lot of people would see the 1% of what it takes. They don't see the 99.9% in the dark. I think 2019 when the crack started to show, I could just feel my soul screaming for help and my heart screaming for something else to fill that void. But something inside of me doesn't want to end an incredible career on what I deem as a moment that was taken away.
This episode is supported by Huel.
Adam, welcome back to High Performance.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I want to start with that brilliant, moving, emotional interview that you did after your silver medal in Paris, where you said you're crying because it took so much to get here. We're interested in what it took to get there.
Well, if we rewind a little bit, it was 14 months from that interview that I had a breakdown, basically. You know, this sport of swimming, any sport, is incredibly hard. Life's incredibly hard, right? And, you know, I got to a place after coming off a training camp for 10 weeks, missing my son, missing home, and I kept getting ill. So my body kept telling me, you know, you don't want to do this, you can't do this. And I went to Edinburgh to race, and my times were about ridiculously slow to what they normally would. And 3 days later after that, I was already contemplating, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore, but we got to keep going. I had that thought a lot of times. And I got back home 3 days later, and I did 400 meters warm up, as I always do. Then I did 25 meters breaststroke. And I did the breaststroke, and I just felt weak. I just felt tired. I felt broken. And I touched the wall, and my goggles are filled with tears. I said, Mel goes, oh, you're okay? I was like, no. And that's the first time I've ever said no. So I got into the shower, just crying. Mel was there, and I said to myself, I don't want to do this anymore. She goes, you know, take a week off, see how you feel then. I said, I don't think a week's going to do this. So we took 2 weeks, and then we started to, you know, question if Paris was even in the, you know, agenda. And thankfully, you know, with Aquatic GB and the people around there, we have such an amazing team that so many people don't have access to. And from that point, I knew that the pain of regret would be greater than the pain of loss. So it was never about medals this time. It was about the opportunity and not regretting the opportunity. So fast forward, you know, 15 months, 14 months to Paris in that interview, I gave my absolute best in that environment. Obviously, some cards were dealt with me that, you know, I had COVID at the time when I was racing. My lungs literally couldn't work. And I touched the wall, and I think it was my most favorite race because what it took to get to that moment, but also the adversity that I've had to get through, and also the choice of actually going to the Olympic Games in the first place. And obviously my son was in the crowd, my fiance Holly, and my mum, and all the people I care about. And, you know, it's just incredible that sport can give you so much in success, but also so many failures and so many moments of testing yourself. So yeah, Paris was a very good one in terms of what I expected out of myself. And, you know, obviously now we're looking forward to, you know, what does that look like next year or the next 4 years, even if it is going to be that thing.
It's so interesting hearing you talk about that moment that your goggles were full of tears and you told Mel that you're not okay. Because when you were last on our show, and Mel's been on as well, the both of you spoke about the fact that you've always wanted another session, always another lap, always to go a bit further, never miss a day, never miss a moment. So can you take us to that moment when you finally said that you're not okay and how it felt?
I think, you know, you're absolutely right that if Mel ever requires me to do something, I'll turn over the whole earth to do it. Any session, anywhere, anytime, any place. That's our kind of motto, that we perform at any cost, anywhere in the world. And this one, I just wasn't willing to pay the cost. I was broken and upset by myself, really. I felt very lonely. And a lot of things that we had in place just weren't, you know, I almost call it a backstop, that you revert to this level. And it just wasn't happening. And it was an extreme environment for me to be in because, again, I am that person who always delivers and always expected to deliver. But I think in sport and in life, I think we're getting more lonely. We're getting more kind of self-centered, more just, this is our journey. And I had to rely on a whole wealth of people to get me back up on that block and what that looked like every single day. And I said to myself that from that point, it would never, ever be about the outcome anymore. It'd be about the journey and the happiness of that performance through that whole journey. And, you know, even now I'm still figuring it out. And how did I even get to that point? How did I allow to get myself to that point? But I think it's, you can't take it on just a mental aspect. It's also a physical aspect that we're delivering these results every single day, 10,000 meters, 12,000 meters, every single day, plus gym, plus all the business and all the nutrition, all the psychology, all the physiotherapy. And even though you're interacting with hundreds of people a week or a month, you can never, ever be more alone on this journey. So those goggles filled up because, again, it was a mix of everything. I like to call it the triangle. You got your mental, you got your physical, and you got your spiritual. And they rely on each other, that every day you're not going to be physically able. Every day you're not going to be mentally able. But maybe, you're going to be spiritually able. So you have to rely on each part of the triangle for me. And, when those goggles filled up, I was like, I'm done. I am done. I do not care. I could not care less about an Olympic gold or Olympic silver or Olympic bronze, or the Olympics in general. So it's about finding the love and the joy in that again and, really stripping everything back.
How close were you to quitting at that point?
Oh, like a nanometer.
Honestly?
Extremely close, because it just wasn't worth it. In that time when I was so broken that nothing mattered if you weren't happy. And there's nothing a gold medal or a world record could give me. Go back a few years to 2019 when I broke the world record in 100 meter, which is still the world record. I touched the wall, even though it was a second and a half faster than everyone else and faster than I've ever been by a huge margin. I was like, that's not enough. So if that's not enough, what is enough? And happiness and peace is enough.
Will you take us into that period when, between Mel speaking to you in the showers, where you agree a week and then maybe 2 weeks, and then you deciding to make that commitment to come back, what were you asking yourself? What were the kind of questions that you engaged in?
I was like, I need some good food, firstly, to get my calorie intake up to make me happy. So I drove straight to the shop, bought loads of chocolate bars. That was my instant gratification. It's done. But on a more serious note, that I was, again, just questioning, how did I get to this point? And what does it look like now to Paris and beyond? And does it end here? And it's really hard because I haven't gone back to that moment if ever. This is the first time I've actually gone into a conversation about that because it's so vulnerable. But, people are coming in and out of the showers and I'm just there crying and Mel's there and everyone can see me, crying. Not too fussed about that. I'm very secure in myself, I think. But I think that shows the rawness of what it takes. I think a lot of people would see, or a lot of people do see, especially at Olympic Games, the 1% of what it takes, or 0.1% in the light. They don't see the 99.9% in the dark. And those are the dark moments that are going to make or break you. And I think everyone in life has those moments, whether you're a 7-year-old kid, wanting to go to Olympics, or a 40-year-old picking up sport again, or having troubles in their career. You have to go through those moments to really define, who you are, what values are you setting yourself, but also where do you want to be, next week, or where do you want to be in 2 years' time. So in that moment in the showers, it was all about how can I get happy now? And those next 2 weeks was about gardening, walking, living simply. And I get a lot of my happiness from doing simple things. It's not about the Olympic gold. It's not about the world records, because that matter of time is so small. It's about who makes me happy, what makes me happy, and how can I get that now to get away from this crisis.
How long had you not been happy for? Are you struggling to get back into your routine after the holidays? Maybe running around, getting the kids back to school, or trying to get back to the gym? Well, the good news is Huel can be your friend. Ready in seconds, saving you time and effort. This podcast is sponsored by Huel, the world's leading complete nutrition brand. And with over 400 million meals sold worldwide, Huel is trusted by people like you to fuel their days with convenient, complete nutrition. I love the Huel Black Edition, ready to drink, 35 grams of protein. Chocolate's my favourite. And I've got an exclusive offer for you. Would you like 15% off Huel and a free gift for new customers? Just use the code HP at Huel.com. Because as well as being nutritious and low in sugar, Huel shakes actually just taste like a milkshake. You can get them in chocolate or vanilla flavour. And if you want 15% off plus a free gift for new customers, just use the code HP at Huel.com. Fuel your day with Huel.
Oof. Tell you what, we're going pretty deep now. I think 2019 when the cracks started to show, that I knew as soon as I touched the wall and I wasn't happy, something was going very wrong. And it wasn't ever about the results. It wasn't ever about, touching that wall and getting world records, but it was like day to day, I'm not happy. And I couldn't find it for a very long time. I remember having the conversation with my, best friend and business partner, Ed. And I was like, we're just sitting in the car on the way back from training. I was like, I don't want to do this. I'm not happy. I've got to find it. And that was the first time where I've showed vulnerability to him. And, obviously COVID hit in 2020. And we've gone through that in the last podcast in 2021. And that changed my world when I had George. And the perspective changed again. I'm committing so much time. I almost feel so selfish for this one goal. And I've got to be away from home. I've got to be on training camps. I've got to perform. How do I get this balance now with my family? And I really couldn't say. I think it was from 2019 to just before, I decided to go in Paris, where I restructured my whole life. It's a good 4-year block of, severely hard times and purpose, because your purpose will change when you become a father. Your purpose will change as an athlete as you get older, because again, what made you happy and what you set out to do, those goals and those goalposts will always change as well.
And one of the things that I've read that you spoke about was that in that 14-month period that you gave yourself to decide to go after competing at the Games in Paris, you wrote a contract with yourself.
Yes. So the contract for me was, what is the cost? And do you want to pay the cost? Do you want to pay the price? And for me, I sat in a room with the previous head of coaching. He was the head coach, Bill. And he put that forward to me. And I say, okay, what is it going to take to get there? And do we even want to do it? And are we willing to pay the price? Because you will have a receipt. When you stand up at the Olympic Games in lane 4, hopefully, you will have to show your receipt of hard work. Because if you don't, that mindset will play tricks on you that you don't deserve to be there. You haven't done the work. All these, things that play in those high pressure environments that your brain doesn't want to be in. So, I looked at it and I overviewed it. We made a roadmap, a visual roadmap, so we could follow that roadmap and look at the areas of potential burnout, which is December to April, for example, because that's the hardest block of work. And obviously it comes back to, do I want to do it? Am I willing to pay the price? I've always been willing to pay the price. I always want to work harder, be the hardest worker in the room. That's not non-negotiable for me. But long term, do you even want to do it? And your heart will tell you if you want to do it. So recently we were in, going away from this question a little bit, we were in Vegas, and it comes back because I spoke to Michael Phelps for about 20, 30 minutes. I just saw him. And I goes, you've retired 2 times. And what did it take to bring you back? Because I'm in a situation now where I'm like, do I go for LA? And he goes, basically, forget all the bullshit. What does your heart tell you? And my heart says that Paris wasn't enough. I don't want to end in Paris. But my experience tells me, am I done here? Because the amount of effort it took to get to Paris alone. So yeah, I mean, it does change. That contract will change if I decide to go on for LA. And, there's people you rely on, experience you have around in your family and friends. That's where the contract is very important.
Because I love the idea of this. In the legal profession, they refer to it as the Ulysses contract, which is basically you're agreeing something with the future version of you, aren't you? That when you're in lane 4 in that Olympic final, you're making an agreement with that person 14 months out from it. So give us an idea of the price that was on the receipt.
I mean, everyone throws around the word sacrifice. I don't believe it is a sacrifice because it's my choice to be there. So it's a choice. So the choice to be there, firstly. And you can go into the more technical things about how many meters. So we're probably covering 10 to 12,000 meters, always about 10 to 12,000 meters a day, plus all the gym work. But that doesn't bother me. It's the time I lose doing that and the energy I lose, because you will be broken physically and mentally, that you can't even operate. You can't even get up in the morning and get to work with a stable mind, because all these things are at play. So you've got that on the table. You've got the time away from your family, time away from their son, that I see him grow without even being there, which I feel guilt. I think any high performer and anyone in an industry where it requires all of you, to a certain extent, if you've got children, you feel guilty for spending that time away from them. So the guilt there, but also, the constant effort of human excellence is a high price. So constantly find a pathway to human excellence, is probably one of the hardest things ever to do, and constantly changing that short-term motivation, which may last an hour and may last a day, and changing that into an inspiration. Am I self-inspired? Do I require people to inspire me? And what happens if I get up on a Monday morning and I'm done, like I'm tired? What's the go-to then? Because we still need to find a way through that for moments in Paris where, we have a bad card, we still need to be able to win.
And I hope you don't mind this question, but I think it's important that we just ask it, which is that I think when someone says, I was broken or I had enough or, I had tears in my goggles and I needed some support, we still talk a bit in riddles, right, about mental health and actually how we're feeling and how it manifests itself. And I think the issue with that is that people might be listening to this going, what I've got is far more serious than that. I can't be helped.
Perspective.
I've got a genuine mental health problem that is no doctor, no counsellor. I'm so broken I can't be fixed. That kind of thinking. So would you mind sharing with our audience that when you say I felt broken, actually how that manifests itself, so they can understand that actually there's a strong chance they are in a similar position to you and that they can be helped?
I think it comes down to perspective. Yeah. I can sit here all day and talk about what I've been through, but people may not understand it, such as I may not understand someone else in another industry that is going through maybe the same. So you have to kind of revert it or, simplify it, I guess, to what it means. And for me, that is something you love and something you care about deeply. If you don't care about it anymore, that's a huge red flag.
Yeah.
And for me, when my goggles did fill with, tears, I could just feel my soul screaming for help and my heart screaming for something else to fill that void. And I think a lot of people, especially in sport, would turn to something else, gambling, alcohol, and other things to fill that void, to fill that high of the arena. And I never got to that place. I don't gamble, for example, for that sole reason, but I have had trouble with alcohol, for example, that you try and fill that void with something else. And, it's very hard for me to say what it felt like because I try to forget it as well. That you try and move on, we're men, we're meant to be brave, we're meant to be doing this. And I think that toxicity and that thinking is so old school. Yes, it gets a lot done, but it's not sustainable. So you have to look at yourself and say, I'm going through this real hard time now. And is it sustainable? And is it something I want? And where's the light at the end of the tunnel? Because if you're placing that light too far down the road, you're never going to get out. So find that light tomorrow, find that light today. And that could just be, again, like simply just going into the garden and just doing something different. I never really did gardening before that. I just, let it just do itself really. And I'm like, actually, I really enjoy this simplicity and I could start to see a little bit of light now. But I think a lot of people, I know a lot of people, especially in this day and age with modern society, are going through some horrendous times. And they may be listening to me right now and going, well, I'm going through something much worse. And I want to reach out to those people and say, okay, but what's the plan here? What is you've got to see it in a process, really. And that's how I've always dealt with things and always dealt with problems. And the first one is reaching out to a loved one or reaching out to a professional. And, I've got an incredible doctor at Aquatics GB, Kate Jordan. She was one of the first. She was texting me multiple times a day saying, are you okay? For those instant 2 weeks, and still checking in with me every few days after I got past that crisis mode. And then obviously Mel, she'll be texting every day, calling me every day and, making sure I was okay. But not many people have that privilege. So I already understand that I'm extremely privileged. I've got a lot of resources behind me to get, a gold medal, but, also to be a healthy, happy human. Because at the end of the day, if I'm not a happy, healthy human, I'm not going to get anywhere near a good performance in an athlete.
Because there was a line in your book, The Gladiator Mindset, that preceded this crisis point, where you spoke about that we all have demons inside of us, but we need them to be controlled to be able to go and perform. So what was it you feel that allowed these demons to get out of control?
I think, I've got it on my wrist here, or my forearm. It says, conquer your demons. And I think someone said to me once that you'll never ever get rid of your demons, but you can learn to live with them. And I think for me, it's learning to live with whoever or whatever things I have going on here. Because some days I wake up and don't want to do anything. And that's completely abnormal for me. I'm a person who gets up quite early, goes for a run or goes for a swim, and then starts to pretty tick off everything that I've got going that day. And sometimes that demon will be like, no, you can't do this, or you can't, you feel anxious for no reason. And for me, that's where breathing techniques come in, for example. Breathe it out. But yeah, I mean, living with those demons, whether that comes in a manner of insecurity, anxiety, or lack of purpose, you've got to live with them and learn to overcome that with positivity or an angel or whatever that, the light is, to overcome the darkness. One of my favorite books in the world, the Bible, has got so much, wisdom from thousands of years ago that is still relevant today. And I look to that now for guidance and almost to navigate that darkness, the high seas.
Can we explore the role of faith then, Adam? Because you've referenced it there, and it's probably one of the most under-researched area of performance psychology, the role of the importance of faith. And I'm wondering if you'd tell us a little bit around what it has done for you.
So for me, I want to go back to that moment where I was broken down. And for me, I hadn't been church since I was 12 years old at this point. So I was 28. And I reached out to some of the Australian swimmers when I was going, out there for 10 weeks, some good friends, some real close friends, and they're Christians. And he said, just reach out to Pastor Ashley. And he lives in Berlin, but he comes to London, once a month for theology and, to look at the books in the library and start to translate stuff, basically. Very, very clever person. Wrote a few books on finding real joy in performance or finding real joy in sport. Reached out to him, and he's been a mentor for me to find happiness in other areas. So there's two things I want to talk about, is happiness, but also the community that provides in church. So for me, the faith has made me understand that the good and the bad have got to come through the same funnel. So if you want to live your life and forget all the bad, it goes through the same funnel as the good. And if you cut off the bad, you'll get no good. If you just want good, that bad is going to creep in and overflow, and it's just going to come all at once. So understanding that firstly, but also the community in church. I've mentioned that it was a very lonely journey. It always has been a lonely journey, even though you're surrounded by a team and, all your other athletes around you. You're the one that's going there on your own and going away from the pool on your own. And this journey is really on your own. Mel's always knew that, and she's always understood it. But I was like, I actually looked at myself, when I came back from Australia, I was like, I don't actually have a community outside of sport. I say hello to everyone, and on the Monday morning, everyone's having a good time, sometimes not. But where's my support network outside of that? And church has been an incredible help for me to understand that sport isn't everything. It's, an important thing for me. But for the world, it can inspire so many people to do better or even get 1% better marginal gains, But for me, that community was a stable, and still is a stable block of reaching out to people who don't care about what you've done. They just care who you are, in the sense of, are you happy? And, are you being guided down the right path?
So this idea of human connection, again, is underexplored when it comes to high performance, because we're taught to believe we can do it on our own.
Yes.
So when you found that human connection through the church, what did it do for you?
Understanding that, Pastor Ashley said to me, because I was really struggling to find peace.
Yeah.
And he says, peace is just if you can look yourself in the mirror every single day and be happy with the values that you set yourself. So am I a good father? Yes. Do I try my hardest? Yes. Do I give joy and love to everyone that I can possibly do it to? Yes. And as soon as I started to answer those yeses or nos and try to rectify the nos, that's gave me peace. And I think for me, in that community and in my faith, that's the thing that matters. Yes, we have our happiness and we have our long-term and short-term gratification and whatever that looks like, but it's all about peace. And I think if you're peace, you can make better decisions, long-term decisions, but also you become a more effective person, but also a more effective athlete from our job. So faith has led me down these incredible paths. And, for people who don't believe, and that's perfectly okay. But for me, I knew it was, and Pastor Ashley was sitting next to me my first time going back to church, because he said, Nottingham, there's this great church, great community. And I was like, okay, I'll turn up on the Sunday morning, 9:15 a.m. And we sat down, and the first service, the whole service, no one knew I was going to go. I went in there kind of incognito, sat at the back. The first service was about the Olympics. And I was like, this can't be chance. This can't be chance. And it was all about the Olympic torch coming through Nottingham in 2012. And Pastor Ashley wouldn't mind me saying, but he was just in tears that it led to me this moment where I was broken down, and now I've had a reaching or helping hand from what I believe in. And that was a moment where I was like, this is something that's really helping my heart recover and my soul recover to be able to live my life peacefully.
He sounds like an incredibly wise guy. Maybe someone we should investigate inviting onto High Performance.
It's incredible.
Do you remember something that he said to you early in this relationship that you think would be valuable for us and our audience to hear?
Well, he's a very emotional guy and he's very wise. And I think he helped me put into perspective, because Mel has always been there. She's like my third parent. You know, I've been with her for 15, 16 years, my coach. And now she's going to Australia. But back then, 15, 16 months ago, we're in a position where everyone wants you to win. Everyone wants to get all this. But that's one community around my job. But Pastor Ashley had no real intention. He just wanted, for swimming, he just wanted me to be happy. And he looked me dead in the eye and goes, you don't have to do this, but you can. But make sure if you do, you absolutely go for it. And I've worked with some incredible people who have reinforced that, like Stephen Peters, another incredible person who has helped me along the way, visit him, 2 times a month up in where he lives. And those kind of people, again, don't get anything out of your performance. They just want to make sure you're okay and not going to be in the black hole of life, which is, we all know it's an incredibly dark place. But I didn't want bias. I didn't want another person telling me I've got to swim, because that's what I've heard my whole life. I wanted these people that gives me perspective for the rest of my life to not only, be happy in my purpose, but be the best father I can be and be the best, one day husband I can be, the best friend I can be, and the best energy I can give to the world as well.
There's a bit that you spoke about your relationship with George, your son, having to dedicate time away from him during that. And I think there's a lot of people that watch this that maybe are wrestling with the same dilemma of needing to provide for families, but also not being then able to be physically there. How did you reconcile that, Adam?
I'm still fighting it because, I get, every 2 weeks I get to see him, which is nowhere near enough. And, that's down to our agreement. And that works amazing. It's very amicable. So we want to create the best environment for George to bring up, and you need healthy relationships with each other, but also everyone involved in that picture. But when I'm going away for 10 weeks or I'm going away for a long time, so the Olympics, and I'm FaceTiming him as much as I can, and he'll cry on FaceTime because he misses me, and the guilt there is the most horrendous feeling in the world. But that's where I've got to bring in my experience, knowing that if I do a good job and I give my absolute best, one, hopefully we're going to get success that he benefits from further down the line, but also it also shows him that you have to be courageous to achieve something great. So I think, yes, as an athlete, it's a very different question, but as a father, that's the most important one for me, that just because you have this guilt and just because you have these times which are very hard to make decisions, doesn't mean you have to succumb to that. You have to navigate it and find a way. So hopefully he'll, as he gets older and, he's 4 years old now and he probably won't understand it, but very soon he'll start to understand that to achieve greatness, you have got to make the choice to get that. I didn't say sacrifice, but you have got to give a huge amount, because if I'm not willing to pay that price right now or overcome that guilt or find a way through it for him or my future children, I guarantee whoever's in lane 5, whoever's in lane 3 will. And that's where it really matters, that I've got to make choices to win, but I've also got to make choices to be the best father. And, he's going to be a great athlete, by the way.
Is it?
A great athlete. But even if he's not, he's got an incredible charisma. He loves to dance. He loves his skateboard, loves his BMX. And, I see it now. That's the joy that being a parent gives me. Yeah. I smile when I even think of him and I cry when I miss him. So I'm not afraid to show that emotion. So don't block it off. That's my biggest advice. Right. Don't feel the guilt, feel the guilt, sorry, but don't let it overcome what potentially is that long-term and hopefully inspiration for them one day, that when they have their children.
I love the pride, the emotion that you have when you're talking about your boy, and you said don't block it off. And I wonder, sitting here now, able to reflect, having gone through this journey, whether actually blocking it off was one of the root causes of all this. I mean, I think back to the guy that joined us on our podcast and told us he had a bulletproof mindset and nothing could affect him. The guy that wrote a book called Gladiator Mindset, a guy who always wanted to do a little bit more, a guy who had never said no to his coach, a guy who admits when he told his friend in the car that he was struggling, it's the first time he'd ever been vulnerable. I wonder whether you were paying the price of years and years of blocking it off.
Payhawk has changed everything. I can control the company's spend in just a few clicks. All our day-to-day tasks are automated, and I have more time to take part in strategic decision-making. I mean, too easy. But here's my secret. I miss the old days. Collecting receipts. Worrying when a sales rep leaves with the company card. Getting surprised by the cash flow. That's all in the past with Payhawk.
I think so. And it comes back to that funnel that it overloaded at the wrong time or at the right time, whatever, I think of it. But I think if you block off that emotion, you're just paying that debt down the line. And that debt is always going to come and collect. So I think if you really recognize what is going wrong, what am I unhappy with? Some days I'll be anxious when I wake up and say, why am I anxious? I've got nothing to worry about. But then I think a little bit deeper and I'm like, oh, it's because of this in next week, or I need to do this now. So I, rectify that now. I listen to myself a lot more. But there is a time and a place to be a warrior. I wrote in my own mindset book, Gladiator Mindset, that you have to be ruthless with yourself. But my next book would be, how do you do that with balance? Because balance is the one that really matters for me. And, when you do get to that point, it will overflow you. It will kill you if you don't, listen to yourself. And, for me, everything I do, every single choice, even the micro choices such as, what am I going to eat for lunch? That's the decision you've got to make. Because you can go down the easy route of eating cake or eating something rubbish, or you can go down the hard route. And something I've understood that you have easy and hard choices every single day. But it's the people who make the hard choices every single day. They're the ones that are going to be successful. They're the ones that are going to be on top of that podium. So yeah, it's a very hard one to navigate.
When you were choosing to drink, right, and you were drinking alcohol, were you aware that you were self-medicating?
I think I was trying to find a high in something that didn't exist. And as we know, you feel a bit happier, you feel a bit number. And I know genetically I've got to be very careful of that. Addiction is, certain sense genetic. I'm not a scientist, but I know that, it does pass down and you get susceptible to that. But when I've got no purpose in training, for those first few weeks, say in off season, I like to party, I like to have a bit of fun. Not so much now, but back in the day, used to do it a lot. Trying to fill that void or trying to feel something like performing in front of 20,000, 30,000 people, millions on TV. But that's never going to do it. That is never going to do it. And to a certain extent, was it just the high that I was seeking, or was it numbness I was seeking from the bad that I've ignored? And it's probably the latter, that I was using alcohol or partying or those environments, yes, for a bit of fun in that time, what I thought. Yep. But again, I was just paying that debt down the road, that's not a sustainable way to really listen to yourself, but also you don't want to numb yourself to anything. But I think numbness is probably the most dangerous feeling you can ever get, that you want to feel the bad with the good. And when you are going to alcohol and when you are going to other things to fill that void, it's not a very healthy way to really address that problem. But that's took me until now, or until last year, to really recognize, because again, numbness and addiction with something will put itself first. And that's very, very hard to have that conversation with. Okay, this isn't okay. These behaviors aren't okay. And, I'm ruining relationships. And I think it does come back down to relationships and the people around you, because I truly believe, and this is another thing that Pastor actually said to me, that happiness, the majority of the time, is down to the relationships you have with people and other people and the people you love in your life. And that was alcohol was ruining that relationship with people.
Can I talk about a relationship in your life?
Of course.
I got, if I can find my phone, I got a text message this morning, which I'd like to read out to you.
I'm scared now.
Said, hey, my friend, hope you're well and the family are all excited for Christmas. I'm currently in Melbourne. So you know who this is from.
Of course.
I'm currently in Melbourne filming. I can't wait to get back home. Have a great time with Adam this morning. I think he saw that on my Instagram that you were coming on or something, or maybe spoke to you. And this is what he said. I want you to know he's an amazing young man with such a great attitude. Honestly, I could not ask for a more down-to-earth, respectable future son-in-law. What he's achieved is incredible. And this is the bit I love. And he's not done yet. I'm looking forward to catching up soon. Gordon.
See, that makes me emotional. I don't want to cry on the podcast, but it makes me very emotional because for him, especially this last year or so, for seeing how he performs firstly, but also the balance he has to create in his life with high performance and, family life and love, for his children and his wife and his family is incredible. I love how he's already signing me up for LA. But, he's a great, father-in-law, hopefully next year. We already call it father-in-law and mother-in-law, but it also, he's also very down to earth with what he's done and a great guide. Another blessing for me to look up to someone like him and Tana, as well as my own parents who, give their perspective on my life. And very important going forward that, you have those people, but it's good because his humor is always so funny. Same with me. I'm a very humorous person to get through life. But, Holly, for example, we came together, on a walk last year. And ever since then, life's just been incredible. Obviously, it's been incredible challenges, but it comes back down to relationships with people. That if you're choosing to spend your time or 90% of your own time with someone you love, and that is the right person, makes everything easier. And what a text, eh?
What a text. And for people who might be a partner or a friend to someone who is actually struggling at the moment, what have you learned from the likes of Holly and Gordon and other people in your life in terms of what people should be doing and should be saying to people that are having a hard time?
I think giving time to people. I think time, yes, we have money, yes, we have all these things, amazing things, material things that you can give to people. But I think time is the most valuable resource we ever have because we never know when it's going to be over. We never know when this journey will fully end. I don't want to get too depressing, but I could die tomorrow and would I be happy with my legacy? Or could I have given more time to the kids we interact with every single clinic or around the world? And, even time to my parents, time to Holly. And Holly is incredible because she will always give time. She's very gentle. So if I'm on the phone and I've got Tom, who's my other performance psychologist in the car, and he goes, wow, just how calming she is all the time. And I think a lot of people can take away that, especially when I'm walking around the streets of London, everyone's in their own zone and everyone's just kind of selfish in the extent that it's their day. They've got to get to from point B to point A, and doesn't matter, just don't interact with anyone. But for me, and seeing Gordon, even in Vegas, for example, he always say hello, always give his time to other people. And the same with Holly. And for me now, I start to give my time a lot more to other people who may need it, because it'll only take one conversation to change a trajectory of someone who's going through a bad time and hopefully guide him through that. You can't help everyone just through resources, but hopefully, through podcasts like this, we can reach out to a lot of people that it only requires one conversation to change that trajectory for the rest of your life.
But there's an interesting line there that just occurred to me, that he said you and Holly met on a walk, or you came together on a walk. And we've had another guest on here that spoke about a seminal walk that she did with you, Sarah Davis.
Yes.
And she spoke about how she came away from that, and felt a million times better by going on that walk with you. And I'm interested in, what is it about going on a walk with Adam? What are you doing on it?
I don't know, but I've always believed that the brain is more active and, well, definitely more active, but it thinks a lot better when it's moving.
Right.
I can't sit still really, I'm constantly moving, but I can't sit down and meditate. My meditation is active, and I think a lot better with people if I'm moving. So Actually, the same place, the same park. For some reason, I choose that Bradgate Park for all my walks with people. But just being out in nature, I'm one with nature. I'm like, if I'm in the trees, I grew up in the countryside, and I just feel, I don't know, just safe, nice, no worries, no anxieties, nothing can reach you in that moment. And I didn't want to go, when you start dating and stuff, you go, oh, let's go to a fancy meal. But, you don't want to do that. It's how you live most of your life. And I was like, to be a person I want to change, I've got to do it in a different way. And I think a walk's the best way to get to know someone firstly. And that walk was about 2 hours long of, okay, who are you, basically? What do you want out of your life? What's your goals? What's your aspirations? It sounds like an interview, doesn't it? But for me, it was more about, okay, this is who I am. And I was and that's the thing. Mine and Holly's relationship has always been extremely honest about the highs and the lows. And she, I had the conversation with her about potentially going on to LA, and she'll give her perspective that it's not free. You have to work extremely hard. And, when we're married next year, God willing, we'll have children as well. And that's going to take time away from them. But that's where we can look at, for example, what, Gordon and Tana do, and my mum and dad who have been there and done it with me. So it's, it's going to be hard if I do it. I can't obviously announce it just yet if I'm going to do it. But I think the best one, or the best thing I can say is I want to stay ready. So staying fit, staying healthy, but also being restful.
Maybe one of the big issues you had early in your career was this rigidity. This is how I think, this is how I act, this is what I do. Maybe the best thing now is that some days you wake up and you think, I can't wait for LA 2028. And other days it's probably okay as well, isn't it, to wake up and think, it's not for me.
I do wake up. I can't wait for LA. But
every time?
Yeah, not every time, but most days, because you're seeking purpose.
Yeah.
My whole life, I've had a routine. It's like people who come out of the military and you're like, oh, what's next? I've had a routine most of my life. 4 a.m. starts, 10 p.m. finishes for days at a time, weeks at a time, years at a time. So when you take that routine away, what fills that void? So yes, I do wake up and go, oh, it'd be amazing to go to LA. And what does that look like? But then my experience tells me that I'm not ready yet. I've got to keep resting. But I had a phone call with Mel, who is going to Australia now, and that's going to be a different program. And this one is pretty much my decision now, only my decision, and with the guidance of, the people around me to make sure it's not a selfish decision, firstly. So yeah, and that's why I say I want to stay ready, because if I want to get ready, it'll take 6 months. But if I stay ready, it'll take a month to get to where I want to go. And I'll take next year off from competing, but I'll be ready. I'll be staying ready if I want to do it. But, you may get to 2026 and go, actually, that's enough for me. But I think a lot of people put pressure on athletes to make these instantaneous decisions. And actually, it's a decision that requires about a year of thought, because it's so heavy and it's such an investment that you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket if you're not ready. So yeah, it would be incredible to be there. But I also know the cost after going to 3 Olympic Games, winning 2 of them, just narrowly missing out on the 3rd one. And, that's just reminding me that I don't want to get to LA and all that, I get ill again. So what happens if you invest all that time away from your children and your family, when you could be obviously doing other things in the world as well, such as business, and have a bit of an easier life in a sense of time, and then you get ill and you get a bad card. So I'm still addressing that thought or potential problem.
Yeah.
But
that must still hit heavy, huh?
Very, very fucking heavy. Because when I got there, I knew something wasn't right. I was walking out in the arena, I just felt a little bit just out of it. Like it was a dream. Like, do you know when you try and run in a dream and you can't get away? I felt a little bit like that. And I know, because normally when I compete, I'm really excited, I'm full of adrenaline and just full of let's go, let's rip someone's head off pretty much. And I got there and I was like, I feel weak. My tongue is dry, my mouth's dry. I was in the call room and I was like, something's not right, but I can't pinpoint it. And that was on the heats. So that was a Saturday morning. I did the semi-final and it's still slow times. And I'm like, why is it so slow? I'm like, I've trained this. I've gone a second faster at trials in April. Something's wrong here. But you can't think about the wrong in the moment, because you can't let that demon in. You can't even open the door to have a peek. And the Sunday morning I woke up and everything above here was just so painful. Headaches, migraines, congestion. My lungs didn't work. So normally I do 4 25 meters underwater, a quick like very quick after one another, so 10 seconds rest, and that's enough to get my lungs warmed up. I did 15 meters and I had to come up for air. So the doctor came round, Kate, incredible doctor, as I always say, incredible person, and she goes, yeah, there's a really bad hay fever going around at the moment. I was like, Kate, this is not hay fever. But she was protecting me, because if we tested for COVID and we tested for viruses, down that last 25 meters, I would have not tried or knew that was an excuse in my head. So she played her role, and we tested after the press conference, after we got the silver, and then instantly, COVID, done. And I started crying because I was like, I knew it. Nothing I could have done about it. But why, of all times, the 1 week or 1 day you've got to be healthy and the best of your best, have you given me the worst card? But I truly believe that silver medal, and I said it in my interview or the interviews after, that maybe that silver medal would give me more than gold in that moment ever would have, about perspective and happiness and the journey. So I've got that to look forward to in LA, and I've got that in my bank to have that experience.
You know, we interviewed Steven Gerrard, and we asked him if he hadn't slipped against Chelsea, costing Liverpool the Premier League, would he have been so driven to become a manager, right? And he very honestly went, no. And I wonder if you'd have got the gold in Paris, whether the fire inside you to go and do something in LA would be there.
I'd be absolutely done. I'd be retired now, I think, for sure. But I've got I won't say a chip on my shoulder, but something inside of me doesn't want to end an incredible career on what I deem as a moment that was taken away from me. And I want to be very clear here that if I didn't have COVID, it's saying that I would have won it for sure. That is not what I want to get across. Nicolo is an incredible athlete, and I've raced him for a very, very long time. I look up to him about what he's doing, and I love all the Italian fans, how passionate they are, and I'll always enjoy that. And I want to get that very clear, that doesn't mean I would have got gold. But let's say, hypothetically, I got gold. I would have been absolutely done. But there's something inside of me, this dying, something coming out of my soul and my heart that, Michael Phelps helped me recognize last week was, I don't think I'm done. I don't think this is enough for me to end on. And we may get to LA and, potentially get nothing, but we also may potentially get gold. But again, it comes back to that first thing we discussed today about the pain of regret is always going to be greater than the pain of loss. And I'm still young. I'm 29, 30 this month actually, but I'll be 33. That's when Phelps retired, around 33 when he was 2016.
You've thought about this in detail.
I'm just like, you know what? Stars are aligning, but I've also, sport is getting better. You got better physios, better understanding of how the body and, the mind works. And I've got an incredible sport network. So I've already got all these resources behind me if I do decide to go, which would make it a little bit easier. But yeah, it requires a lot more conversations with the people that I care about and care about me, and that maybe that's a gradual decision that I just get back in the water and see how it feels.
You've used the term balance a few times, both in your recovery personally, and your future father-in-law and the way that he manages it. Do you think it's possible to still be an elite champion, to go to these extreme lengths and have balance?
I always listen to my instinct. As soon as you said that, I said no. But then I look at my experience, which is very different to my instinct. And I say yes, because if I look at what makes me happy, I can incorporate that into my training. So Cam McAvoy, who won the 50-meter freestyle in Paris, he's had an incredible career because he wasn't winning. In 2012, he was the next up in Australia swimming. And then he had a bit of a period where he wasn't winning and wasn't making finals. But then how did he turn it around to win in Paris? And I followed his whole journey on Instagram and reaching out to him. But some days he'll get up and go, actually, I'm not going to get anything out of training today. I'm going to be better off resting. Or I'll go do something different. Or I'll turn up in the afternoon instead of the morning. And that's balance for him, from my understanding. So to be a sprinter, yes, you're going to have a certain amount of meterage and a certain amount of investment. But also if you get up on a Monday morning and go, actually, I've got a very heavy weekend with my boy, we've been traveling, maybe I just go in the afternoon. And that's balance. Or actually, I'm going to do a bit of gardening or get all the business stuff done on the Monday morning, all the admin, then I'll go training. So yes, you can do it with balance. You just have to restructure it and still be accountable, that you can't just be lazy and go, actually, I don't feel like this today, because that demon in my head will be like, no, someone else is training right now. You got to get ahead of it. And that's going to be a constant fight that we've got to address.
I'm very excited for what comes next for you. And I think that if you're still thinking that your legacy is gold and silver medals, I think that's wrong, because I think that there could be a real opportunity here for you to prove to people that you can be at peace and be a high performer. You can have a reflective mindset and perform at the elite level. You can think like this and you can still be a champion. And the fact that your gut instinct automatically goes no is probably because for the last 20 or 30 years, you've been told you can't have both. Imagine if you're the person that shows every young kid that dreams of being an elite athlete now, oh, right, so I can be at peace and a high performer. I can be content and in balance and still do great things. You can help change the conversation around this, I think.
Yeah, and that's something we do a lot actually at the moment, not around that certain scenario, but for us, a lot of these kids, so in the summer, we'll do it over 8 days, 10 days, we'll see over 1,500 kids, for example.
With AP Race?
With AP Race, which is, our company. And we don't call it a swim clinic, we call it a race clinic, because we're preparing them not only to be the best racers, but the best high performers. So I start the day off and I go, look, there's 1,500 kids, no matter where you are. It could be in Liverpool, it could be in London, it could be in Cornwall. It's all around the country, Scotland. We go, statistically, none of you are going to get Olympic medals. But what are you going to do today to change that trajectory? Or look around, what are you going to do better than people around you? Yeah. But even if you miss, and it's not about Olympics, of course it's about Olympics, but it's not about Olympics. Even if you miss, you've got a skill set that not many people have got through sport. Yeah. Learning how to work hard, learning how to goal set, very important. Learning how to lose with grace, win with dignity. Learning how to lean on a team. All these, resilience, perseverance, these amazing things that so many young people aren't taught because they don't do sport. So I'm actually, we take it from a negative of these are the odds are against you, but actually even if you miss or get to nationals, incredible feat still, but you can have all these skill sets to be the best teacher, the best pilot, the best doctor, something that's going to give you a 1% margin on everyone else going through the same thing at your age. You're going to be one up from them, and you can put that on your resume, on your CV. So
it's not about win at all costs then with young people. That's not the right message for young people.
It's joy. Enjoy it. And I always get asked, what's the one thing you wish you did a bit better? And at that age was enjoy it, because I was a very serious guy, very serious performer, still am. But I just wish I enjoyed it a little bit more. And you've got to obviously understand that if I enjoyed it more, would it give me the performance I had? Maybe, maybe not. But I look and, some of the kids come up to you and they're shaking because they're so excited for the day ahead, or they finish the day and say, it's given me the confidence. And we, in swimming and all the clubs around the country, even the world, you have to deal with some very complex problems. So Kev, who's come with us today, he'll deal with the parent side of things. And we have parents that have lost children. And the most, it makes me emotional even thinking about that scenario. But how did they get through that and guide, their club swimmers, or help their club to perform, or help other kids come through that? And all these things we have to deal with that no one else is doing in the world, no one else is doing in the country. So AP Race and our kind of identity is about enjoyment, but also you have to give 110%. That's a non-negotiable. If you go through those days, or you go through whatever we do, or the events, we have an event in May, the London International, AP Race International, and that's about getting the world's best swimmers for prize money, and they get to race in the London Olympic pool, but we'll give hundreds, if not thousands, of tickets to grassroots sports, and we'll have grassroots finals, so they get to experience what it's like to stand behind an Olympic champion or the race before them, but also enjoy a full crowd that no one else is doing. And I can't figure out why they're not doing it. I mean, it requires a huge amount of resources and money, which I invest in myself and in the company, because it really matters to me that, yes, the gold medals, I guess, are my legacy. Maybe it's not. But the biggest legacy for me is guiding that and mentoring the next generation to fill that gap. Because what happens when I stop? Yes, there's other amazing swimmers currently on the team, but what happens in 10 years' time, 20 years' time? We need to be looking after that generation.
But can I also pick up on that? Because I think one of the things that has been seminal in your career has been what you said earlier, relationships, and most notably with your coach, Mel Marshall. So what are the kind of messages you would want to give to any aspiring parents or coaches on this, that for young people, in terms of how they can find the joy?
You know, again, I get it asked in any Q&A session, wherever we're doing it or whatever day it is, about my kid doesn't want to do it, but I know it's good for them. And that gives me a red flag, because the parent wants it more than the kid. But I also understand that sometimes you have got to push the kid to do it. So for one example, on a Sunday night, I was, I didn't want to do it anymore. I was 14, 15 years old. It was too much training. And I just wanted to go down a skate park and just be like everyone else. And I was like, Mom, I just don't want to do it anymore. I want to quit. And she was like, okay, turn up at 4 a.m. the next morning. And I absolutely loved it. So if she let me quit then, I wouldn't have done any of it. I wouldn't be sitting here right now, potentially. But on that Monday morning, if it wasn't for my mum telling me that actually this is just a bad time, just keep turning up and keep having fun. And that's the biggest advice for me, that you've got to protect the fun, because that's how kids, that's their foundation. And if you build a foundation out of concrete instead of sand, you've just got to build that technical, strategic, and what it looks like after that, which is obviously a house. But again, you can't build a house if it hasn't got a good foundation. And that for a kid is always love, always enjoyment, and always joy.
I love that, because the stats are alarming in swimming, the amount of young people that fall out of the sport right before they get to where they would dream of. The same happens in every single sport. Mm-hmm. And it's because we're not prioritising joy in what young people are doing. And I think the fact that you're doing that at AP Race is, I think it's fantastic.
Thank you.
Can we talk about some quick fire questions?
Let's go.
I'm interested to see how these compare to the previous ones. First of all, your 3 non-negotiable behaviours. What are the 3 behaviours after everything you've been through that matter more than anything else?
Hard work, obviously. Mm-hmm. Resilience through the hard times. And now, I think it's not really a behaviour, but it's a really hard one to answer, isn't it? I think you've got to have a passion and a love for something. I know you've got to have a passion for it to all happen. You've got to have the passion to be able to work hard and be resilient.
Brilliant.
What advice would you give a teenage Adam?
Calm down. Calm down. And if it wasn't for Mel, I would have burnt out 100%. She guided me through the highs and the lows, but also challenged me in ways which are entertaining to me. So I'd go on a race on my own to set a record, even though I didn't get the record. It's a challenge. So she knew exactly how to push my buttons and, just get that balance right, really.
We have a new feature on the High Performance app where we allow people to really focus on their daily habits, the small things that make a big difference. If you see something from someone else and you want to adopt it yourself, we make it easy on the app. What is the one daily habit that really stands you in good stead?
My to-do list, honestly. That helps me massively. I mean, I've said it publicly, and I don't want to throw it around, but I've got ADHD, so I can't really sit still. But my brain moves at 1,000 miles per hour. But my to-do list and my calendar has to be extremely organised for me to be a high performer. And if it's not, my energy starts to go like this, just out. So yeah, just keeping focused on the morning. What do we need to do in the morning? What do we need to do in the afternoon? And just following that.
Brilliant.
What's your biggest strength and your greatest weakness?
Emotion. My biggest strength. I can use emotion. I can use music to get me fired up. I can also use my emotion very cleverly. I think emotional intelligence is so underappreciated. I think that's my biggest strength, but my biggest weakness is also emotion. That sometimes I do let the winds get to my heart or my head, and the losses get to my heart. So both on the same kind of plateau there.
Yep.
And the final question, after this incredibly honest and open and brilliant conversation, thank you for it. What would you like to leave ringing in people's ears as your one golden rule for living a high performance life?
Keep turning up. Because it's so simple. And I hear a lot of people say it, just keep turning up to be successful. But keep turning up and live every single day like it's your last, or every single opportunity is your last. Because we've seen it in Paris. We don't know when the last opportunity is going to be. And we've seen it, before Olympics, before that. And, I could get injured or I could get ill.
Yeah.
So live every single day and take every single day as an opportunity and find a way to be happy through that.
Love it. Look, what you're doing with AP Race, what you've done in your career, and as Gordon says, the best is still to come, right? Applying a little bit of pressure there, but I think the biggest the biggest thing is you're able to sit and talk openly and honestly about what you went through. And I hope that if you're not there yet, that there is a time where you are almost grateful for the experiences that you went through because of what it's given you.
Extremely grateful. Well, thank you for having me today.
We're grateful. Thank you for coming, Adam.
I don't think you can be a high performance by yourself. I don't think it exists.
Interested in what kind of lessons you could pass on to our listeners.
That is the most interesting question I've ever been asked in my life.
This is High Performance, available to you, your people, and your business right now.